Hi, this is Ian Magaha, and I am doing coding problem 1.3. So basically, this problem is asking us to write a program that prints out the longest substring of S, where the letters occur in alphabetical order. We are given the string that we are testing, which is these characters right here, to test our code. And when everything's all said and done, we should get that the longest substring in alphabetical order of S is going to be BEGGH. And in the case of ties, like in this example, where we have ABC, BCD, the first longest substring should be the one that's printed out, which is stated right here. So to get started, we obviously need the string that we were provided. This is our test string, and the characters are the same as the ones that are commented right here that were given to us. We're also going to need a string that is the longest substring of S. So I just have this string right here called longest, and obviously at first it's going to start off as just empty. I guess this would just be a space. Our actual program to test if things are in alphabetical order is going to ultimately be two different for loops. So the first for loop is just going to, have I, and it's going to end at the length of S. So it's going to start at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The reason why I here is important is it basically determines what our first character is in testing each time. So for example, we're going to start off with 0. I is going to start off at 0. So that's going to be A. Sorry. To explain further, so we have a for loop inside of the first for loop where j is in range starting at I and then ending at the length of s minus 1. So obviously I is determining what our first letter is going to be because j only starts at I. So our current string, which is basically our testing string to see if the current string that we're building up is bigger than the previous longest string. It starts at S as I. So for the first example, the first time we go through the loop, S of I is just going to be A because I at first is 0 and S at 0 is just going to be A. So then we have an if statement. So if S at J, and J is going to be 0 here because like I said, we start at I and I is 0, so J is 0. So if S at 0, which is A, is less than or equal to S at J plus 1, which is just 0 plus 1, meaning if S at 0 is less than or equal to S at 1, then current should ultimately be the substring of S that starts at 0 and then goes into J plus 2. So that's starting at 0, ending at 2. So included in that substring is going to be the spaces of 0 and 1, which is basically just our A and our Z. So our very first longest substring is going to end up being AZ because yes, Z is longer, Z does have a greater value than A. So current, the if statement here gets checked. Current does become S I to J plus 2, and this string is AZ. And obviously, we go through this if statement as well. If the length of the longest is less than the length of current, then longest becomes current. And obviously here, the length of current is going to be longer than the length of longest when we first initialize it. So, and just to check this, I have this print statement right here to print out every time that longest changes. So if you go ahead and look at what our output is, it goes from AZ to BEG, even though in our string we have instances where we have alphabetical substrings of 2 lengths. So like BO would be alphabetical, BO here would be alphabetical, and then but those aren't included. And the reason they're not included is because of one of the conditions we were given. In the case of ties, we print the first substring. So to make sure that we're not replacing longest with a current that's the same length. We have in this if statement, it's not less than or equal to, it's only less than. So the length of longest is less than the length of current. So the reason why longest isn't changing is because if they're the same, then it's not going to change until we get to BEG. So basically, if we do the check to see if S at J is less than or equal to Sj plus 1, if this is not true, then we go ahead and break from this loop and then go back up to this loop, and I will increase by 1. So then we'll basically shift over the first character in our substring. And so we started off with AZ. It found that starting at position 0, when I is 0, the longest substring we get is then AZ. And then we move over to I is 1, and then there we find there's literally nothing. C is just not longer than C. So we break out, go back to end of 3. Same case here, B is less than C. But then we break out again, and O is greater than B, or yeah, O is greater than B, but then we find that B is not greater than O, so we break out, and we start with O, and we find that B is not greater than O, so then we break out, start with B, and yada, yada, yada. It continues until ultimately, let's see, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, eventually I becomes 7, and we start at 7, and we find that, oh, look at that. S at 8, which is E, is greater than B. Okay, and then let's go through again. Oh, look at that. G is bigger than E. And then G is equal to or less, or yeah, it's equal to or greater than the previous position. So we have 2 G's, and then H is greater than G. So we find that the longest ends up being BEGGH. I hope I explained that well enough. Really what I'm just trying to say is we have I here, which ends up being our first character in our substring. We go through our second for loop. If the character after the first character is greater than the first character, meaning that we're in alphabetical order, then we make current longer, and then we test if current is longer than longest. And if this if statement is not true right here, we go ahead and break and go back up to the first for loop, increase I by 1, and then move the position over and see if we're in alphabetical order. And we just do that a bunch of times until we get BEGGH. But I haven't really tested in this video to see if ties work. So let's do that. So let's specifically use the test string that we're given, which is S is equal to ABC BCD. So let's go ahead and throw that in. So now we do that, and then we get that ABC right here is our longest substring, which is great because BCD is also equal to ABC. Now if I added an E here, it would become BCDE because BCDE is longer than ABC, and it's no longer a tie, so it overpowers. But if, like I said, if we take that E away, it finds that ABC is, in fact, the longest substring first, and then BCD has the same length as ABC, but it came after, so we don't change it because we don't have an equal sign right there. We just have a less than. So that, I hope I explained it well enough, but that is my solution to the assignment. I am going to go ahead and take out my testing, which is just printing the longest every time that it's changed. So let's see. Yeah, and so now our output is just longest substring, and alphabetical order is the longest substring. And let me go ahead and change back the string that we're provided to test. And there we go. We have longest substring in alphabetical order is BEGGH, just like it says up here it should be. And our program works as it was expected. I hope you enjoy the video. Sorry for rambling, and I will see you for the next coding assignment.